It was 2:37 a.m. when the generator cut out, leaving the camp in darkness. The desert wind pushed through the thin fabric of our tents, carrying sand that bit at the skin. I was halfway through a report when the laptop screen dimmed, just enough for a small notification to flash at the corner. Subject: we need to talk. I almost didn't open it. After 12 hours on patrol, all I wanted was sleep and silence. But something in those words, "we need to talk," burned through exhaustion. I clicked, and just like that, 4 years of marriage ended in a paragraph. "Daniel, I've thought about this for months. I can't do this anymore. The distance, the uncertainty. I've filed for divorce. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." Claire, I read it twice before it even registered. Filed divorce, no explanation, no call. Just a digital goodbye across 10,000 miles. Outside, the night was quiet, except for a few soldiers murmuring near the trucks. I sat frozen in front of the screen, my hand trembling over the mouse. That's when the second email came in, a bank alert. Withdrawal confirmation, 47,200, our entire savings. Gone. I don't remember standing up, but suddenly I was outside, breathing in the dry heat, staring into the nothingness of the desert. $47,000. Every deployment bonus, every dollar we'd saved for the home we planned to buy when I got back. The sand shifted under my boots. And for the first time in my life, I felt weightless. Not from freedom, but from loss so sharp it left me hollow. My bunkmate, Miller, stepped out of the tent, squinting. "Danny, you good?" I forced a breath. "Yeah, just needed air." He nodded, too tired to ask more. Soldiers didn't pry. We just carried what we couldn't say. When he went back inside, I sat down on the hard ground. The desert stretched endlessly before me. Flat, cruel, silent. I thought about the wedding ring I'd left back home because it wasn't safe to wear on duty. I thought about the emails I'd written her during every patrol, about coming home, about building something real, and now, all that waited for me was a signature and an empty account. For the rest of that deployment, I worked like a ghost. No jokes, no small talk, just drills, orders, and silence. I'd stare at the horizon every night, half expecting another message, an apology, anything. But none came. Funny how someone can erase you with a few keystrokes, if you've ever had someone walk away without a word. You know that silence is louder than any goodbye. Tell me, how did you deal with it? 3 months later, I came home. No one met me at the airport. No family, no friends. Just a folded letter left at baggage claim, addressed in her handwriting. "Daniel, I'm sorry it had to end like this. I've moved on. Please don't try to find me. It's better for both of us. No return address." No explanation. I rented a small room near the base, the kind where the walls smelled of old paint and cigarettes. Every night, I'd open my laptop, scroll through our old photos, and close it again before I could look at her face too long. For months, I replayed every word of that email in my head, trying to find the moment I lost her. Was it when I extended my deployment? When I missed our anniversary call? Or when I promised I'd be home soon, even when I knew that word meant nothing in our world? Then one evening, Miller stopped by. He tossed a newspaper onto my table. "Thought you'd want to see this," he said. It was an article from the local business section. "Claire Jennings joins Horizon Development as CFO. Her new name, her new life, and the man standing next to her in the photo, her new boss, smiling, hand on her shoulder." I remember staring at that photo for a long time, not out of anger, but out of disbelief at how easily someone could build a new world while yours was still in ruins. That night, I walked out onto the balcony, the city lights flickering like distant fires. The anger didn't come like thunder, and it came quietly like rain. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to feel like I still existed, ever lost something or someone, and realized the hardest part wasn't letting go, but learning how to be you again. The next morning, I did something simple. I deleted her emails, every last one, and in that small act, something inside me shifted. Not healed, not yet, but cleared just enough for light to pass through. I wasn't ready to rebuild yet. But I knew one thing: I wasn't done living. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a private investigator, one hired by her company. He said, "Mr. Hale, I think you should know something. Your name's still on one of their accounts." The call came on a Tuesday, one of those gray mornings when the air itself feels tired. I was making black coffee in the small kitchenette of my rented room when the phone buzzed. "Unknown number, Mr. Hale," a man's voice said, crisp and careful. "This is Robert Quinn. I'm with a private investigations firm contracted by Horizon Development." I froze. Horizon Development. The same company from that newspaper article. "Yes," I said slowly. "How did you get my number?" "I'm not at liberty to explain that, but I thought you should know something." He hesitated, then continued. "Your name is still listed as co-signer on an inactive account tied to Horizon's expansion fund. The same fund your ex-wife currently manages." I set the cup down carefully, trying not to spill. "That's impossible. We closed everything when she filed the divorce." "That's what I thought," he replied. "But this account shows transfers from her personal signature into corporate reserves, and your name's still embedded in the authorization chain. It means technically you still own part of it." I leaned back against the counter, heartbeat rising. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," he said quietly, "something about those transactions doesn't add up. And if the company's ever audited, the fraud will trace straight to you." For a moment, I didn't move. The coffee turned cold in my hand. It was happening again. "The same nightmares, different stage. Can you send me proof?" I asked. "I'll email you the file," he said. "But Mr. Hale, you didn't hear this from me. She's not acting alone." The line went dead. I sat there for a long minute, the room eerily still. Outside, a siren wailed somewhere in the distance. I checked my inbox. There it was, a folder labeled Horizon Ledger Confidential. Inside, transaction logs showed multiple transfers, small amounts spread over months, siphoned from project funds to consultant accounts. The authorization trail included one familiar tag, D. Hale, verified signature, legacy ID, from before deployment. She'd used my old military-linked verification code. It's crazy how betrayal can echo in new ways, like it keeps finding you until you finally face it. You ever had that one thing from your past that just won't stop haunting you? I printed everything out and spread the pages across my table. Each line felt like another small betrayal. I wasn't angry at her anymore, just numb. She'd taken the money, the love, the name, and now she'd left me one more thing, her mistake. That night, I went to see Frank Miller, a retired accountant I'd known through the Veterans Network. He lived above an old hardware store, the kind of place that smelled of rust and memory. "Daniel Hale," he said, shaking his head when he saw the papers. "Haven't heard that name in years." I gave him the folder. He spent an hour reviewing every page, his brow furrowed. Finally, he looked up. "You realize what this is, right?" "Trouble," I said. He nodded. "She's laundering money through corporate shells. Small transfers. Smart enough to slip past internal audits." "But she used your ID as her ghost signature." I frowned. "Why would she do that?" He shrugged. "Maybe she thought you'd never look back. Or maybe—" He trailed off. "Maybe what?" I pressed. "Maybe someone's using her too." The next day I tried to call her. Her number was disconnected. I emailed her instead, no anger, no blame. Just, "Claire, I need to talk." "You left something under my name." "Please call me." No reply. A week passed. Then another. Until one evening, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. "You shouldn't have looked, Daniel." No signature. No subject line. It wasn't her tone, too cold, too calculated. But someone knew I'd found the trail. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan turning slowly above me. When you've been betrayed once, you start seeing ghosts in every shadow. But this didn't feel like a ghost. It felt like a threat. Ever notice how people who wrong you don't just disappear? They linger in your life until you finally stop running from them? The next morning, I made a decision. No more waiting. No more silence. If she was in trouble, I'd find out. And if she wasn't, I'd still face her one last time. I packed the folder, my old deployment badge, and a notebook, and drove 3 hours to the Horizon headquarters downtown. The glass towers loomed over the city, sleek and cold, like they were built to keep people small. At the reception, the clerk looked up politely. "I'm here to see Claire Jennings," I said. She typed something into her computer, frowned slightly. "I'm sorry, sir. Ms. Jennings hasn't been in for over 2 weeks." I hesitated. "She's not working here anymore?" The clerk shook her head. No record of termination either, just missing. That word hit me harder than I expected. Missing. I stepped outside, the sunlight harsh and white. For the first time since that email overseas, I didn't feel anger. I felt something else. A strange mix of concern and unfinished business. She'd taken everything from me, but somehow part of me still wanted to make sure she was okay. As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed again. "Unknown number," I answered. A woman's voice, faint and nervous, said, "Mr. Hale, you don't know me, but I worked with Claire. You need to be careful. She was investigating someone before she disappeared, and that someone just found you." Before I could ask who it was, the call dropped, and a black car parked across the street slowly rolled down its tinted window. Inside, someone was watching me. The black sedan didn't move. It just idled there, humming softly, tinted windows swallowing whoever sat inside. I stood frozen on the curb, folder clutched tight under my arm, the city noise fading behind the rush of my heartbeat. Something inside me said, "Walk away." But another part, the one that still needed answers, whispered, "No, not this time." I started toward the car. Slow, careful steps. The engine revved, but it didn't move. When I got close enough to see my reflection in the glass, the window rolled down 2 inches, just enough for a woman's voice to slip through. "Mr. Hale, stop looking into things that aren't yours anymore." Calm, steady, professional. I couldn't see her face, just a faint reflection of blonde hair and sunglasses. "Who are you?" I asked. "You don't need to know," she said. "But if you value what's left of your peace, you'll burn that folder and forget Claire Jennings ever existed." She started to roll the window back up, but I stepped closer. "Tell me where she is." The car idled for another second, then she said softly, "You are asking the wrong question." And before I could speak again, the tires screeched, and the car pulled away into traffic. I stood there for a long time, the city spinning around me. The wrong question. What was the right one then? Not where is Claire, but maybe why did she disappear? That night I went back to my small apartment and replayed the call in my mind. Every word, every pause. Then I remembered the name tag on that private investigator's card, Robert Quinn. If anyone knew what was going on, it was him. I dialed the number he'd called me from. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Still nothing. I didn't sleep that night. When you've already lost everything once, fear feels different. Not sharp, just heavy. Like a weight you learn to carry. You ever get that feeling where you know something's about to change your life again, and you're not sure if you're ready for it this time? The next morning I went to see Frank again. He was hunched over his desk, cigarette smoke curling through the air like ghosts that refused to leave. "I told you to leave it alone," he muttered. "People like that don't play fair." "Who are people like that, Frank?" I asked. He slid a file across the table, one I hadn't seen before. "This came to my office last night. No return address. Inside were printed photos, surveillance shots, of Meade outside the Veterans Center, at the Horizon lobby, and one from last night, right before the black car drove away." Frank's voice was grim. "You've got eyes on you, Danny. Whoever they are, they've got resources." I clenched my jaw. "So they're watching me now?" He nodded. "And they're not watching because of your ex-wife. They're watching because of what she found before she vanished." I leaned forward. "What did she find, Frank?" He hesitated, then pulled out a second sheet, a partial scan of an offshore ledger. Claire traced about $12 million funneling through Horizon's foreign partners. She linked it to one of the investors, a shell company named Bracken Limited, and Bracken's owned by a defense contractor, the same one that supplied your base overseas. The realization hit like a punch. She was investigating them. "Yeah," Frank said quietly. "And now they're cleaning house." The next few days were a blur. I stopped answering unknown numbers. I moved my things to a friend's spare room across town. But late one night, as I was closing my laptop, a new email arrived. Subject, "Help me." From claire.unknownmail.net. My breath caught. I opened it instantly. "Daniel, I can't say much. They're monitoring everything. You were never supposed to see those transfers. They used your ID to cover their tracks. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Please, if you still trust me even a little, don't come looking for me. Just stay safe." See, I read it 3 times, searching for any sign it wasn't real. But the phrasing, the tone, it was her. It wasn't guilt I felt reading it. It was something worse, familiarity. The same tone she used when she left me. Quiet, apologetic, final. Only this time, it sounded like she was the one being hunted. The next day, I took the folder, the ledger copy, and her email to a local journalist, someone who'd covered corruption cases before. Her name was Sarah Malik. She met me at a small cafe on the edge of downtown, notebook in hand. "You've got something real here," she said after scanning the documents. "If Horizon's connected to Bracken, and Bracken's tied to defense contracts, that's national-level fraud. So what happens if we expose it?" I asked. She looked at me, her expression unreadable. "You'd better hope the people behind this care more about money than silence." I nodded slowly. "And if they don't?" She smiled faintly. "Then we make enough noise that silence isn't an option." That night I drove home feeling something I hadn't in a long time. Purpose. Not revenge. Not anger. Just the quiet need to do something right again. Because somewhere out there, the woman who'd broken me was now running for her life. And maybe, just maybe, helping her was how I'd finally forgive her. And myself. Funny how sometimes redemption doesn't come from revenge, but from doing the thing you swore you'd never do again. Care. When I reached my apartment, the door was slightly open. I froze. Every light was off inside. I stepped in quietly, heart pounding, and found a small flash drive sitting on the table. No note, no markings. Just a sticky label on top that read, "Play Me." When I plugged it into my laptop, a video file opened, and there she was. Claire, bruised, terrified, whispering into the camera, "Daniel, if you're watching this, they know about you too." The video started grainy, shaky, the kind of footage you only take when you're afraid. Claire's face appeared on the screen, lit by a single flickering lamp. Her hair was shorter, her eyes hollow. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. "Daniel," she whispered, glancing over her shoulder. "If you're watching this, then they've already found me. And they'll come for you next." Her voice trembled. "I didn't mean to drag you back into this. You were just supposed to sign one document years ago. That's all. I thought it was for tax transfers. I didn't know it was part of a laundering chain. When I realized, it was too late. They threatened me, said if I talked, they'd ruin you again, or worse." She stopped for a moment, breathing hard, then lowered her voice. "I left something for you. Proof. It's hidden inside the watch you gave me before your last deployment. You said it was engraved with 'Always Find Home.' I took that literally. My throat tightened. That watch, I remembered it. It wasn't just a gift. It was a promise. But if she still had it, that meant she'd kept something that mattered." The video glitched for a second, then came back. Her expression had changed, more urgent, desperate. "If you find it before they do, don't keep it. Give it to someone who can protect it. Trust no one from Horizon, not even me." And then faintly, just before the video ended, a knock echoed from her side of the camera. Her head turned sharply. Then the screen went black. I sat there staring at the laptop, frozen. My heart was racing, but my mind was already working. That watch. When she'd left, she'd taken everything. But I remembered giving her that watch on the morning of my deployment. It had been custom-made from an old compass I'd carried during training. The idea was simple. Wherever you go, you'll always find your way back. Now it was my turn to follow it. You ever notice how life circles back to the things you thought were gone forever? People, promises, pain. Almost like it's testing if you've really changed. The next morning, I called Sarah, the journalist. "We need to meet," I said. She could hear it in my voice. "You found something, didn't you?" "Not yet," I said. "But I know where it is." We met at a quiet diner on the edge of town. I showed her a screenshot of Claire's video. "She left me something," I said. "A watch. Probably with a drive or chip hidden inside." Sarah leaned forward. "Do you know where it is now?" I hesitated. "Her parents live in Cedar Hill. She might have left some of her old things there." Sarah nodded. "I'll go with you. Safer that way." Cedar Hill was 3 hours away. All winding roads, pine trees, and small-town quiet. The Jennings house sat at the end of a long gravel driveway. Shutters half closed. Mailbox rusted. When we knocked, her mother answered. Gray-haired, gentle, her eyes tired but kind. "Daniel," she said softly, surprise flickering across her face. "You look thinner." I nodded awkwardly. "It's been a while, Mrs. Jennings. I just needed to ask about something Claire might have left behind." At her name, her mother's smile faded. "You've seen her?" I shook my head. "No, ma'am, but I think she's in danger." Her mother sighed, voice trembling. "She came by 2 months ago. Said she needed to hide something important. She didn't say what, but she went to the old workshop out back." We followed her down the creaking porch steps to a small shed behind the house. Inside, dust hung in the air like time refusing to move. On the workbench lay boxes of old things, photos, letters, broken gadgets. And there, near the corner, a small wooden case. I lifted it carefully. Inside, wrapped in a faded cloth, was the watch. Same engraving, same weight. Only now there was a small groove under the backplate, one that hadn't been there before. Sarah handed me a pocket tool. "Careful," she whispered. I pried the back open. Inside was a micro SD card sealed with clear tape. Engraved beneath it on the metal were 3 words. "Keep your word." I just stared at it. She'd hidden evidence inside the symbol of our promise. You ever realize too late that someone's goodbye wasn't betrayal? It was protection. As we left the workshop, a sound made me stop, a faint hum far down the road. Sarah turned. "Do you hear that?" I did. Tires on gravel. A black SUV appeared at the end of the driveway. Mrs. Jennings gasped. "That's the same car from before." We ducked behind the shed. The SUV stopped in front of the house. 2 men stepped out, suits, sunglasses, clean cut. Corporate muscle. One of them called out, "Mrs. Jennings, we're here on behalf of Horizon Holdings. You're in possession of company property. Hand it over and no one gets hurt." Mrs. Jennings froze. Sarah grabbed my arm. "They're looking for the watch," I whispered. "Then they're not getting it." We slipped out the back and cut through the woods, moving fast but quiet. The sound of footsteps followed, closer, heavier. When we reached the edge of the forest, my car came into view. We dove in, engine roaring to life. As we sped off, I looked in the mirror. The SUV had stopped, the men watching us disappear. For the first time in years, I didn't feel powerless. I wasn't the man left behind anymore. This time, I had the truth, and the will to use it. That night, Sarah backed up the drive and ran a file check. Dozens of folders appeared, all encrypted. But one stood out. Labeled Project Haven Final Report, Sarah exhaled. "Daniel, this isn't just fraud. This is military level." "What do you mean?" She turned the laptop toward me. "These aren't financial documents. They're contracts. Defense manufacturing. Unregistered shipments." It hit me then. The same defense contractor that supplied my base overseas. It was all connected, and somehow Claire had stumbled right into it. As Sarah began decrypting the file, the laptop screen flickered, and a live feed window opened. A man's voice came through the speakers, calm and cold. "Mr. Hale, we warned you once. This time we won't ask." The sound of that voice froze us both. It wasn't just a threat, it was familiar. The kind of tone you don't forget once you've heard it given order. "Mr. Hale," the voice continued, steady, confident, like it belonged to someone who already knew every move I'd make. "You've stumbled into things that have nothing to do with you. Return what you found and we'll make sure this ends quietly." Sarah instinctively shut the laptop. "How did they—" "They're tracking the files," I said. "The moment we accessed it, they saw our IP." She glanced at me, fear flickering in her eyes. "So what do we do now?" I thought about it for a second. About the men in the SUV, the voice, the years I'd spent being blamed for things I didn't do. And something inside me hardened. I wasn't running anymore. Not this time. We drove to Frank's workshop that night. He was waiting, sitting at his cluttered desk, still in his undershirt, coffee in one hand and suspicion in the other. "Jesus, Danny," he muttered when he saw us. "You look like you've been chased by the CIA." "Not far off," Sarah said. We told him everything, the watch, the file, the voice. He listened in silence, jaw tightening with every detail. When we were done, he leaned back. "You're not just poking a hornet's nest, son. You're kicking it off a cliff," I nodded. "Then I guess we find out if it can fly." Sarah plugged the laptop back in, this time offline. "Whatever's inside Project Haven, it's big," she said. encrypted using military-grade keys. Whoever set this up didn't just want to hide it, they wanted to bury it. Frank started running a decryption algorithm. As the code scrolled across the screen, something unexpected popped up. A list of user IDs. One of them made my blood run cold. C. Jennings. Access, level 5 clearance. I leaned closer. Claire had clearance? Sarah nodded slowly, which means she wasn't just accounting. She was in the system, Frank frowned. But if she had this much access, why reach out to you? I stared at the flickering screen. Because I was the only name she could still trust. The file finally opened. Rows of spreadsheets filled the monitor. Not financial ledgers this time, but shipment logs. Coordinates, manifests, serial numbers, and a header that made my chest tighten. Horizon, Bracken, military surplus allocation. Undisclosed. Sarah whispered. These are weapons transfers. Illegal ones, I added. Frank scrolled to the bottom. Destination Arling Base 2016, I froze. That was my deployment base. I stared at the screen as the memories came rushing back. The faulty shipments, the missing crates, the constant shortages we couldn't explain back then. They weren't errors. They were thefts. And Claire had unknowingly signed off on them. That was why they needed her. And that was why they wanted me erased. It's strange, isn't it? How the same truth that once broke you later becomes the one thing that saves you. Before we could process more, Frank's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned. Unknown caller. Probably spam. He answered anyway. Yeah? A voice on the other end, calm, confident. The same one from the laptop, Mr. Miller, it said. You're harboring classified material. Hand it over, and we'll forget this conversation. Frank's face went pale. I grabbed the phone. Who is this? The voice chuckled. You don't recognize me, Hale? You should. We met in uniform. The line went dead. Sarah blinked. Who was it? I stared at the phone, the sound still echoing in my head. Captain Ward. He'd been my commanding officer overseas, the one who'd handled all supply operations. The one I'd trusted completely. The realization hit hard. Ward wasn't just part of it. He was running it. Everything started to fit. The stolen shipments. The forged transfers. The fake accounts under my ID. He'd used my name as the perfect smokescreen. A loyal soldier who'd never question an order. And Claire. She'd found the link. Sarah looked at me carefully. Daniel, if he's behind this, going to the police isn't enough. He has people everywhere. I don't care, I said. He took my career, my marriage, my name. I'm not letting him bury the truth, too. Frank exhaled. Then you'd better have a plan that doesn't get us all killed. I nodded. I do. The next day I called in a favor. A friend from the Veterans Network, now working in digital security. We arranged to leak the decrypted files to multiple outlets. Journalists, watchdogs, even government oversight offices. No single point of failure. If one fell, another would rise. Sarah insisted on publishing her piece too. Operation Haven, the story they tried to erase. We knew the moment it went live, there'd be consequences. But truth has a strange way of forcing light through cracks no one expects. That night, as we waited for the upload timer to finish, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. A text this time. You're making a mistake, Hale. This ends one way. I typed back before I could think. You're right. It ends, and hit send. Sarah glanced at me, half smiling. You okay? For the first time in years, I said, yeah. I actually am. When the upload hit 100%, Frank leaned back. There, no turning back now. Outside, thunder rolled, distant but coming closer. The storm was literal this time, and somehow it felt fitting. Because for the first time since that email overseas, I wasn't waiting for pain to find me. I was meeting it head on. If you've ever reached that moment where fear turns into quiet resolve, where you finally stop running and start standing, you know exactly what that feels like. A few minutes later, the power flickered. Then in silence, Frank cursed softly. They're here. From the window, I saw headlights approaching through the rain. A convoy. I turned to Sarah and Frank. Stay behind me, I said. Whatever happens next, they can't take this truth back. The first man who stepped out of the convoy wasn't a stranger. It was Captain Ward. and beside him, drenched, trembling, eyes filled with fear, was Claire. Rain hammered against the tin roof as the convoy doors opened. Headlights sliced through the darkness, turning the wet ground into mirrors. Frank stepped back, muttering a curse. Sarah gripped her camera bag like it was armor, and I just stood there, watching the man who'd once been my commanding officer walk toward me like a ghost that refused to stay buried. Captain Ward hadn't aged much. Same rigid posture, same cold eyes that could make a soldier second-guess his own heartbeat. Only this time there was no uniform. Just a black coat and the confidence of a man who believed himself untouchable. But it wasn't him who broke me. It was her, Claire, standing a few feet behind him, soaked, shaking, mascara bleeding down her cheeks. Alive, her eyes met mine. 1,000 unsaid things in that one look. Fear, guilt, relief, and maybe a flicker of something like hope. Ward's voice cut through the rain. "Daniel Hale," he said. "You were always too curious for your own good." I didn't answer. He smiled faintly. "You could have walked away. You had your life back. But no, you had to come digging again." He gestured at Claire. "And now look. She's paying for your mistakes." I stepped forward, rain pouring down my jacket. "She's not paying for anything. You used both of us. The fake signatures, the stolen shipments, it was you." His smile didn't fade. "You think anyone will believe that? You're a disgraced soldier with a record and a grudge. She's a proven accomplice." "Me?" He spread his hands. "I'm decorated," Sarah whispered from behind me. "He's trying to bait you." I didn't take my eyes off him. "You built your empire on lies, sir. But this time the truth's already out." For the first time, his expression twitched. "You leaked it," I nodded. "Every document, every transfer, every voice file. It's all public now." Ward's jaw tightened. "You stupid, predictable fool. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I stared right back. "Yeah, I stopped being your scapegoat." The moment stretched thin between us. Then his hand moved, too fast. He wasn't reaching for a gun. He was reaching for Claire, yanking her close, his arm wrapping around her neck. "Let's make this simple," he hissed. "You want her?" "Give me the drive," Sarah froze. Frank took a step forward, but I raised a hand. "Don't." I could see it in Ward's eyes, desperation disguised as control. The truth had already stripped him of his power. This was all he had left. Fear. "Ward," I said quietly, "you taught me one thing when we served together. Never negotiate with a man who's already lost." He sneered. "You think I've lost?" "You will." And then Claire moved. She stomped down on his foot hard, twisting free for a split second. It was all I needed. I lunged, grabbing Ward's wrist and slamming it against the wall. He stumbled, hit the mud, and before he could recover, I had him pinned. Years of bottled anger came rushing through my hands, but I didn't strike. Not once, because I wasn't that man anymore. I just looked down at him, soaked and shaking, and said, "You'll get your punishment. Ward, but not from me, from the truth you tried to bury." Police sirens echoed in the distance, faint but growing louder. Sarah had already called them when the convoy pulled up. Ward laughed bitterly, lying there in the mud. "You think this ends with me?" "No," I said. "It ends with you being remembered for what you really are." As the sirens got closer, he turned his head toward Claire. "You betrayed us too." She didn't flinch. "No, I stopped lying for you." The cops arrived minutes later, black and white lights cutting through the storm. Ward didn't resist when they cuffed him. He just kept staring at me, as if memorizing the face of the man who'd finally beaten him without firing a shot. Afterward, the officers questioned us for hours. Sarah gave them her footage. Frank handed over his logs, and me? I sat beside Claire in the back of an ambulance, silence stretching between us like a wound we didn't know how to close. Finally, she spoke. "You shouldn't have come for me." I looked at her. "You shouldn't have left me." Tears welled in her eyes. "I thought they'd kill you if I didn't. Ward said you'd never come back from overseas alive if I didn't cooperate." I nodded slowly. "So you broke me to save me?" She sobbed softly. "I was wrong. I just didn't know what else to do. For a long time, I didn't answer. I just stared at the rain sliding down the ambulance windows, each drop catching light, each one falling the same way. Then I said, 'You made your choice. And now I've made mine. Sometimes forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in. It's about finally letting them go without hate. A few days later, the story broke nationwide. Whistleblower exposes military supply corruption. Retired captain arrested. Sarah's article went viral. Ward's name was everywhere, and for the first time in years, mine wasn't. No more scandal. No more shame. Just quiet. Claire was placed under protection as a cooperating witness. Before she left, she came to see me. We met at a small park, the same one we used to visit before deployment. She handed me the watch. "I don't deserve to keep this," she said softly. I looked at it, scratched, worn, but still ticking. "It was never about deserving," I said. "It was about finding home." She smiled through tears. "Did you?" I nodded. "Not where I expected, but yeah, I did." That evening, I stood by the river watching the water carry everything away. Dirt, leaves, and the echoes of the past. In my pocket, the watch ticked steadily. Each beat a reminder that sometimes, the hardest battles aren't fought overseas. They're fought inside the heart. Have you ever forgiven someone who didn't deserve it? Not for them, but for your own peace. 2 months later, I received a small brown package with no return address. Inside was the same flash drive, and a note in Claire's handwriting. "You were right, Daniel. Some wars never end, they just change names." The package sat on my kitchen table for an hour before I opened it. Brown paper, no markings, no sender. Just my name, written in that same looping handwriting I'd once known better than my own. Inside, the flash drive gleamed faintly under the morning light. And the note, folded, worn, smudged from rain, carried only 10 words. "You were right, Daniel. Some wars never end, they just change names." For a long time, I just sat there, the ticking of the old wall clock the only sound in the room. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. If anything, it felt like the final echo of a story that had finally run out of words. I plugged in the flash drive. No files, just one folder labeled "For You." Inside it, photos. Dozens of them. Old ones from before the war. Our wedding day, the tiny apartment we'd first shared, the day we adopted our dog. And then newer ones. Of her helping investigators, testifying in hearings, standing next to Sarah in a press photo. She looked tired, but free. At the bottom, a video file. When I opened it, she appeared calm this time. No fear, no panic, just truth. "I don't know if you'll ever forgive me," she began. "And I don't expect you to. But I wanted you to know that everything's over now. Ward's been sentenced. The contracts are being dismantled. You're cleared. Officially, finally." She paused, smiled faintly. "You told me once that soldiers fight to come home. I used to think that meant a house, a person, something to hold. But now I understand. Home isn't where you end up. It's what you become once you stop running." Her eyes softened. "I hope you find yours, Daniel. You deserve peace." The screen faded to black. I closed the laptop and leaned back, letting the silence settle. For the first time in years, it didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. Outside, the world moved like nothing had happened. Children laughing on the street, a couple arguing over groceries, a plane cutting through the clouds. Life, real life, going on, indifferent and beautiful. I smiled. Maybe that's what redemption really is. Not erasing the past, but learning to live beside it. You ever realize the closure you needed wasn't an apology? It was finally understanding why things happened the way they did. A few weeks later, I met Sarah for coffee. Her article had won a regional award. Ward's trial had exposed an entire network of fraud that reached beyond the military, and she'd refused to take credit alone. "I just told the truth," she said. "Yeah," I replied, "but you gave it a voice." She smiled. "And what about you? What's next for Daniel Hale?" I looked out the cafe window. Sunlight hitting wet pavement. Reflections shifting like ghosts learning to dance again. "I'm starting a foundation," I said finally. "For veterans who come home to nothing, to help them rebuild." She nodded approvingly. "You've come full circle." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe I just stopped spinning." A month later, I visited the training center we'd set up. Haven House. The name came from Claire's files. Project Haven. But now, it stood for something better. Not corruption. Not loss. Hope. The first group of veterans was already there, fixing up old computers, learning trade skills, laughing in ways only people who've seen darkness can. I walked through the hall, shaking hands, listening to their stories. Each one different, each one a quiet victory. And somewhere in that noise, I heard my own story settling too. Not ending, just finding its place. That night, after everyone left, I stood alone in the empty hall. The watch, her watch, ticked steadily on my wrist. I hadn't worn it in years. Now it felt right. I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the loss, the endless fight to prove who I was. And I realized something simple. I hadn't been fighting to win. I'd been fighting to remember that I was still me. I took a deep breath and whispered to the quiet room, "I'm home." Because sometimes peace doesn't come from getting even. It comes from finally not needing to. Later, as I locked the door and stepped into the cool night, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Thank you, Daniel, for saving more than just my life." No signature, but I didn't need one. I smiled, slipped the phone back into my pocket, and walked down the street. Calm, steady, free. The war was over. Not out there. In here. In the end, I didn't rebuild my life to prove her wrong. I rebuilt it to remember who I'd been all along.